Well, guys, we have so many stories around Ukraine for the last 24 hours, but the main one is obviously a political ultimatum from Europe, from Ukraine, and partially United States of America to Putin. Yeah, yesterday there was the big meeting of the European leaders of France, UK, Germany, and Poland in Kiev. Together with Zelensky, they came out with an idea of how to implement at least the temporary ceasefire in Ukraine for the next 30 days. Because for now, just Putin announces his fake ceasefires for 1 day, for 3 days, but they do not work, because battles are still very intense on the front lines. So the general idea of this coalition of the willing, mostly European allies of Ukraine is to implement the unconditional 30-day ceasefire, so Russia should stop shooting, as well as Ukraine, and it's gonna be started from 12th of May, so coming very, very soon. And it's all been told to Donald Trump and in a way coordinated from what I understood. Coalition wants to show the real face of Putin. It is understandable for me and for you that Putin doesn't want any sort of the peace in Ukraine. But it seems like it is not understandable for Donald Trump's administration. Yeah, they say sometimes that they're concerned about Russia, but they do not implement any sort of the strict sanctions, nor USA increases the military support of Ukraine, and there are no talks about it. Moreover, the talks are about United States to leave negotiations and to leave Ukraine without any help. But European allies together with Ukraine seems like changing everything for Putin and partially for Donald Trump. From their statements yesterday, it is understandable that they don't want to play Putin's game any longer. Then Donald Trump and Putin agrees on something, and meanwhile the war in Ukraine continues. President of France Macron, for example, says that if Russia does not agree, it will face the consequences of additional sanctions and increased support for Ukraine. Moreover, a new package of sanctions is already ready. And in the coming days, he says, we'll communicate our initiative with the United States of America. At the same time, UK Prime Minister Starmer says that together with Trump, we will increase military aid to Ukraine if Putin refuses to cease fire, which is going to happen tomorrow. Keith Kellogg is also playing this pro-Ukrainian game. A comprehensive air-land-sea infrastructure ceasefire for 30 days will start the process of ending the largest and longest war in Europe since World War II. As POTUS has repeatedly said, stop the killing now. Well, he does not mention Russia here, but he supports the initiative of the European allies, which Russia absolutely hates. And before we go to the Russian reaction, let me tell you one thing. Hello, my friends, and welcome. My name is Dennis, and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go. And yeah, this is the first reaction we have from some of the Russian official, Dmitry Medvedev, the ex-Russian president, and now the deputy head of the Russian Security Council. Macron, Merz, Starmer, and Tusk were supposed to discuss peace in Kiev. Instead, they're blurting out threats against Russia. This is the auto-translation, sorry guys, it's hard to read. Yeah, for me it's better to translate it from Russia, so the ceasefire is basically a respite for Bandera hordes, he called that Ukraine. Or the idea is to implement just new sanctions on Russia. Do you think it's smart? Huh? Put those peace plans into your pangendered arses. So basically we have the response on those initiatives coming from European allies, from one of the main actually Russian officials. And it seems like Putin was really confused with this ultimatum from Europe that Russia should come out with decision whether they want 30 days at least ceasefire or they want to continue the war. And Ukraine gets more military support and Russia gets more sanctions. The oil prices, as you know, are going down. So yeah, Russia will still survive that for the next couple of years at least, but it will be harmful for the Russian elite, first of all. That's why at night yesterday Putin came out with a speech to the Russian press and to the Western press, by the way. Yeah, it was unusual, a nighttime broadcast from Putin where he says the same Russian narratives. That there is not a regime in Kiev, that Russia wants peace and Ukraine doesn't want it, and that Ukraine rejected Istanbul agreements, so Putin wants to take Ukraine back to those agreements. And those are not the ceasefire negotiations, no, Putin wants to press Ukraine even more and to fight on the front line in parallel. The formula of Istanbul agreements is the same for Russia, as they said. They want to occupy 5 of the regions of Ukraine, including Crimea, plus they want demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine wherever it means. Because according to those Russian agreements, which they proposed before back in 2022, Ukraine should have not more than 80,000 soldiers in its army, which is basically nothing judging on the scale of this war. And Putin wants to start those talks on 15th of May. Again, he will call Erdogan to accommodate negotiations, but it seems like it was already agreed at first with Turkish side. Yeah, Turkey wants to play this mediation role, they have their own agenda, but it's not interesting for Ukraine at all, because the ceasefire will not be implemented. And those discussions which Russia proposes is nothing more than capitulation demand for Ukraine. So there is definitely no topic for the interest of Ukraine to start direct negotiations with Russia. About their own capitulation, it's kind of strange after all. And here is the very short break, my friends. Please like this video and also subscribe for my channel, because YouTube just likes, then you react to my content, then you press your huge like, then you subscribe, especially then you subscribe, and it's better to do it just right now while you are watching this video. Many thanks for your support. And yeah, Putin understands that Ukraine will never agree on their own capitulation already. It is understandable, I guess, for everyone, including the Russian elite, but the main idea for Putin is to continue to fool Donald Trump. Putin wants the United States of America to stay close to Russia, to negotiate about their business or something. And Putin wants to use Donald Trump as his political weaponry. He understands that there are some of the pro-Russian crazy community in Donald Trump's team. And why those useful idiots or the agents of the Russian influence, like for example Tucker Carlson or Elon Musk, who spreads the Russian narratives all the time, Putin sees a huge leverage to act on United States president. So Putin in a way responds, it's the counter punch from him that okay, we are ready to start direct negotiations with Ukraine, about Ukrainian capitulation, but nevertheless, we're gonna talk. And if Ukraine refuses, well, it means that they do not support any sort of the peace initiative. And now it's all the game of the ceasefire and peace talks. One idea comes from Ukrainian side and coalition, another dark idea is coming from Russia, and all of that basically aims towards the White House, for Donald Trump to continue the support of Ukraine or for Donald Trump to cancel the support of Ukraine and restart relations with Russia. And before Putin's official statement, Peskov yesterday said that Russia would agree on ceasefire only if Ukraine would not have any sort of the military support, including the support which is coming from the European allies, which is nonsense, as you understand. European allies, at least, they'll continue the support of Ukraine no matter what White House says. And by the way, we have some good news about it. It means that the only goal for Russia is the defeat of the Ukrainian political regime, that's what they say, or Ukrainian government in other words. And they want to do it in every way possible, in political, in military, and now they use the combination of those. And still Russian president doesn't understand that resistance comes from the Ukrainian society. It doesn't mean who is the Ukrainian president and what is the Ukrainian government. Ukrainians will not accept Russians' rule, and that is why Russia actually continued to strike Ukrainian civilian, first of all, infrastructure. They want to terrorize people. Putin thinks that Ukrainians might accept a Russian peace and Russians ruling, just not being harmed by the Russian drones and missiles, but this logic is no-go, because the more Russia strikes Ukraine, the more resistance there is in Ukrainian society. And by the way, the last night Russia again launched their Shahed drones on Ukraine, the Russian ceasefire expired and they intensified the strikes. And guys, here's my usual but nevertheless the great thanks for my Patreon supporters and also the members of the channel. Guys, you just keep me running. Because of you, I'm filming videos regularly. I try to do it every day. Yeah, I had some of the gap for the last couple of days, but I'll publish many more videos as much as possible just because of you. Thank you so much for your great support. And if you want to join my Patreon, the link is in the video description just below. And what is that? It seems like Donald Trump just woke up and started to say about the peace in Ukraine, a potentially great day for Russia and Ukraine. Think of the hundreds of thousands of lives that will be saved as this never-ending bloodbath hopefully comes to an end. No, Donald Trump, it is not coming to an end, and everyone except you and your freaking dream team sees that. I will continue to work with both sides to make sure it happens. The United States of America wants to focus instead on rebuilding and trade. A big week upcoming. Yeah, as you see, Donald Trump is completely out of reality. Just a few hours ago, Putin rejected the proposal for a 30-day ceasefire, replacing it with Istanbul 2.0 negotiations about the Ukrainian military defeat or political defeat. And here he says about potentially great day for Russia and Ukraine. What's the great day, Donald Trump? The ceasefire proposal was rejected. Russia continued their military actions in Ukraine. Russia just boosted the production of their military, instead demanding for Ukraine to stop receiving military support. What's the origin of this joyful and positive remark from Donald Trump? I don't see it at all. Moreover, my friends, I really think that Donald Trump may again push Ukraine really hard if he thinks that communication, direct communication with Russia in the format of Istanbul agreements is good. But de facto, no, it's not good at all for Ukraine. The ceasefire is very profitable for Ukraine on the other hand, because now Russia still keeps initiative on the front lines and Ukraine could prepare defense in a better way without direct confrontation and fights, and Ukraine has less resources compared to Russia, including human resources. I don't really like that word, human resources, because after all, we cannot value human lives like that. No, every individual is very important, and that's the main difference between Russia and Ukraine, I guess, in this war, that Ukraine values lives of soldiers, after all, more compared to Russia. And yeah, there are crazy sick commanders elsewhere, including Ukrainian army, but Ukraine has way less of those cycles. Yeah, I know that there were some of the mistakes done in Ukrainian offensive operations, in Ukrainian defense operations, but the general trend in Ukrainian army, if we speak about the value of life, is much better compared to Russian army. Russia is just crazy with those mid-wave attacks. Macron calls the Putin's proposal as the first step, but not enough. Does it mean that Macron agrees on those fake negotiations about Ukrainian sovereignty, actually? It's hard to judge for now because the comment is very limited, but not enough tells a lot that Istanbul format is not enough. Russia should implement ceasefire right away starting from tomorrow for the next 30 days. Otherwise, Ukraine will obtain more support. And we have the good news from Germany and partially from the United States of America. Well, Germany will support more of the Patriot missiles to Ukraine as well as the long-range rocket artillery missiles, probably for HIMARS. And all of that was agreed by the United States of America because they produce that kind of the weaponry. So they have the right to block the supplyment of, for example, Patriot missiles to Ukraine, to the third party. That's how, for example, Switzerland blocked the supplyment of the Gepard shells. So the Gepard are not the tanks, I would say that's the air defense system, but the shells for it are being produced not just in Germany, also in Switzerland. Well, for Switzerland it is understandable, after all it's the neutral country and Ukraine obtained those Gepard bullets later on from Germany, but Patriot systems are very critical for the Ukrainian air defense, and missiles should come from our allies, also from the United States of America, but USA has actually the right to block those deliveries, which is scary under the current Donald Trump's administration. And we have the information coming from the German media sources that Germany decided to classify all of the military support coming for Ukraine. Well, what can I say? This should have been done long time ago.
2, 3, 4 там летит.
So this is the morning in Ukraine. Russia launched the Shahid drone attack. It has been confirmed by the eyewitnesses. But you know what? Russia also receives the military support from its allies. We're speaking about Iran here, about the Shahid drone technology which was provided to the Russian side, and they built a couple of the factories out there in Russia, and they produce Giran 2 drones, which is the copy of Shahid 136 drone. But again, we have the information, and it is already coming for the third time, as I remember, that Iran is willing to send its ballistic missiles to Russia, because Russia is struggling with that actually. Well, Russians have Iskander ballistic missiles, they're very effective, but at the same time they're very expensive in production, so Russia may obtain some of the support from Iran, and actually this support is very important for Russia nowadays. And yeah, Iran also supplies artillery shells to Russia as well as North Korea, but the most of the shells after all are coming from North Korea. Also, North Korea sends its soldiers, artillery systems, ballistic missiles as well. Russia closes its airspace from tomorrow in the region of Kapustin Yar launching spot. You might remember Russian Oreshnik, which Russia used to strike Dnipro city. Well, they might use it once again. At least we have some of the rumors for now in media saying about that stuff, that Russia wants to choose some of the targets in Kiev and to escalate, but that is how Russia will show that they're not oriented on peace at all. So it would be a risky move from Russia towards relations with Donald Trump, which they want to build based on business that they want to make together. And there is even a security alert notice from the Embassy of the United States in Ukraine that there is the potentially significant risk of the air attack. The last time Embassy provided this notice, there was definitely an aerial strike on Ukraine. But with hundreds of drones and missiles, there was the warning of the United States Embassy towards their own citizens. There are now some tensions between Hungary and Ukraine, kind of the significant tensions, I would say. A Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha says that 2 Hungarian diplomats must leave our country within 48 hours. We're acting in response to Hungary's actions. So at first Ukraine found out some of the Hungarian spies which were collecting the information about the Ukrainian military presented in the western regions of Ukraine. And next, Hungarians on camera detained some of the secretary of the Ukrainian embassy in Hungary, saying that he is a spy. So the tensions between two of the countries start to escalate quite a lot. And obviously I do support Ukraine here in this confrontation because after all I do not consider Hungary as the democratic country. With Orban in power, no. Yeah, you may say that Ukraine has some of the problems with democracy as well, but Ukraine is at war with Russia. Obviously, there are some of the freedoms were cut. But for Hungary, they're cut for a long time already without any sort of the confrontation. So yeah, Orban is really a pro-Putin's puppet out there in Europe. As well as Fico, Slovakian Prime Minister, who attended the Russian parade. And yeah, Hungary is the only country which is blocking European initiatives of Ukraine nowadays. It just wants to block Ukrainian membership, that's it. And guys, about the situation on the front lines with military map update, I'm gonna probably record the video about it tomorrow, because now there are lots of the changes happening out there since a Russian ceasefire, so-called ceasefire, expired. And they're now attacking in Pokrovsk direction and others. Ukraine is pushing in the Kursk Oblast once again. So more detailed picture I'm gonna obtain close to the evening time and I'll tell you everything. For now, I might say that there was the fight during the last 3 days, even though Russia announced the ceasefire, but fight continues, especially in Pokrovsk. Well, not as heavy as usual, but there was the fight. Alright guys, now about India and Pakistan. Here we should speak about Donald Trump once again. He mentioned that USA mediated the talks between India and Pakistan and they came to conclusion that full and immediate ceasefire should be implemented. Well, not more than 3 hours after this post was published, Pakistan launched the attack on India. Yeah, at first India attacked Pakistani military infrastructure. Pakistan responded on that with their military operation, but there was no the ground forces intervention, so both of the sides used aviation, rocket artillery systems and standard artillery. And also some of the drones. Well, for now it looks like that ceasefire definitely works. But the fact I think that India understood that Pakistan has some of the military capabilities and that fast glorious victory with minimum losses is just not possible. Well guys, after all for me it's very hard to judge that region. I know some of the history, but after all I'm not very deep into Pakistan-India politics, religion first of all, because it's also, the confrontation is based on religion as well. So I try to speak as less as possible and just give you common facts about what is happening out there. I just hope that the war will not spark once again in that region because it's not profitable for anyone. Yeah, the war itself is not profitable, but yeah, Pakistan, India Come on, we have some other great things to cope with. Plus, those countries have nukes, so the confrontation should not happen and should not escalate. That's my only opinion about that stuff. I know there are some of the people, viewers of my channel, who do support India. Some other viewers, they do support Pakistan. Well, I do not support any of the side there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should dig more history, more research. But the main topic for my channel is Ukraine and everything around Ukraine. Yeah, sometimes we speak about Donald Trump just because he's also connected to Ukraine. You see how much he may influence Ukrainian capabilities, Ukrainian army, by cutting supplies, by renewing supplies. And if you didn't know, then Donald Trump cut the military support of Ukraine. It wasn't his permission, actually. Pete Hegseth, the United States defense minister, did it on his own, just to show Donald Trump that he's very loyal to him, because in one of the conversations, Donald Trump said that we're gonna block military support to Ukraine if they wouldn't listen to us. But by the time Donald Trump didn't want really to do it, that is why they played the other game, why United Kingdom, which say to Zelensky that write kind of the good post to Donald Trump after your failed meeting in Oval Office. So Zelensky wrote something very special. Donald Trump liked it and renewed the military support for the next day, and intelligence support, by the way, too. Yeah, time runs fast, but I guess you remember that mess. So I'm gonna speak about American politics and madness in American politics that is happening just because it influences Ukraine and actually every other country in the world. That is how big United States economy and military really is. And now, my friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot, and I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.